Good morning, my name is Cynthia Gonzalez, and today I'm going to be presenting on Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill has constantly been regarded as one of the greatest leaders in history. He is the true definition of a charismatic leader.
The total and final extirpation of the Hitler tyranny, of the Japanese frenzy, and the Mussolini flop.
He also practiced servant leadership, so essentially this makes him the ideal candidate for this class and this topic. Being regarded as one of the greatest leaders in history, a lot of people don't necessarily know what it was that Churchill did. They knew he was fantastic at speaking, they knew that he was prime minister, but they don't know specifically what it was that he did, and it was a pretty massive feat. Winston Churchill essentially stopped the Nazis in Nazi Germany, Hitler, from invading Great Britain. In doing so, he probably stopped a lot of potential problems. But it's not that specific feat that makes him so remarkable. It's really how he did it. He was a soldier, he was an artist, he was a politician, and he was a writer. Winston Churchill was a man of many, many faces. As a charismatic leader, he is really easy to apply to the hospitality industry, especially in the tactics he took, his way of working, his way of dealing with his audience and his co-workers as well. Being probably one of the most ambitious men in history, he was also very innovative. Many often praise Winston Churchill with having an endless mind. It is essentially this endless mind that helped him proceed in convincing the rest of his audience in Britain that his way was essentially the true and the best way to take. And it takes a certain kind of person to actually convince others of this, which is why his charismatic leadership skills were really so effective. In working towards the rearmament of Great Britain and in the political sphere entirely, he challenged the status quo quite often. Winston Churchill switched over political parties probably about 2 or 3 times during his reign in politics, and a lot of people saw this as a form of mistrust, and they did not know if they can support this, but essentially it was the sign of a true leader because he was very flexible. He knew how to see both sides of a story, and he knew how to support different groups of people in order to do what's best for the country. With the views of opposition from Great Britain in terms of how to proceed with Nazi Germany being quite the opposite of what Winston Churchill perceived, he really had to go about this in a certain tactical manner in order to convince them that his way was the best. He had to be supportive. He had to essentially want these people to be participative and boost their morale so that he had the support that he needed. He also had to be charismatic. All 3 of these qualities are those of a servant leader, and they're really what helped Winston Churchill achieve his goals in Great Britain during World War II and just proceeding even afterwards in his role in politics. Winston Churchill knew how to build an alliance. He really needed a great team in order to make this a successful operation. He was very close to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he also had William Beveridge on his team. The fact that he knew how to seek out potential in people even before they developed great things. For example, William Beveridge eventually, after Churchill, developed the National Health Service in Great Britain. He knew how to surround himself with people who were going to propel him forward and help him achieve his goals. Honesty and openness was a very large factor with Winston Churchill. He did not hide things. He was very blunt with what he believed, but this also instilled a sense of trust. Many people were able to trust him, which is necessary when standing face to face with Nazi Germany. It was crucial to have the trust and the boost in morality that the people perceived in him. Charismatic leaders need to be able to win over their audience and gain the confidence of them through charm, through positivity, just overall genuineness and self-assurance. It's what essentially helps a great, great leader succeed and have their audience on their side, which is something that Churchill desperately needed when he was working with them. As a charismatic leader, it's very, very evident that he was such through his speeches. During World War II, Winston Churchill's speeches were broadcasted worldwide because they were so powerful. Picture Winston Churchill sitting in a chair, surrounded by hundreds of people with a cigar in his mouth. While doing so, he had the entire audience laughing.
We shall never descend to the German and Japanese level. But if anybody likes to play rough, we can play rough too.
Now, laughing is not necessarily something that would be the norm in such a dire situation, But in this case, the fact that he was able to instill such comfort in the group of people he was speaking to that they would laugh and just go along with what he was saying, it shows the trust and the courage that these people had when it came to dealing with Churchill. And by boosting the morale in the British citizens and ensuring them that he had everything taken care of and that all he needed was their backup and that it would proceed to some sort of success, I mean, it was really the best thing he could do at that point in time. There's a speech called Some Chicken, Some Neck that has gone down in history because Winston Churchill employed euphemism and euphemism. He made a negative situation essentially turn into something positive. And the reason he knew how to melt his words so well is because he was a writer. Winston Churchill was essentially an artist. And what do you know about artists? They have a completely different mindset. When you're an artist, you're more creative. You are more open to new ideas, but you also know how to instill your own and manipulate your words and the way that other people perceive you in order to get them to see your visual as well. As an artist, he was a painter. As a writer, he was a novelist. He published countless novels, and he actually had his writing pretty far through the Americas and Great Britain. He actually had a quote once I would love to share with you. He said, "That common language enables a writer to reach twice as many people. An actor can appeal to two publics." This is a quote that Churchill gave prior to his role in politics. He actually said that while he was a writer, but it's really interesting because it's something that he was able to implement even when he was in politics. It's something that he was able to play a role in, appealing to two different parties at the same time, America and Britain. He had to do that as a writer, he had to do that as an artist, and essentially he had to do that as a politician as well. And it was something that he was able to humanize also. He was able to humanize politics because he knew how to speak. He knew how to express himself. And in reality, it all plays back to him being an artist. Because artists, and I am one, so I can easily say this, we go about problems in a different way. It's not as conventional. And it's that uniqueness and that different tact that actually helps in success. Now, when it comes to the hospitality industry, it would seem odd, but essentially hospitality and politics are not as different as one may believe. Every day, new decisions do have to be made. You're a hotel manager. You have to deal with your guests. You have to deal with your employees. And essentially, you just have to deal with the overall perception of the business as well. All of these things provide different challenges and different problems, situations that change every day. So flexibility and adaptability are crucial tasks that you have to have as a hospitality major and just working in the hospitality industry. This is also something that happens in politics. In politics, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with problems, and you're dealing with your employees. And you have to know how to communicate with them effectively and solve these problems with pretty quick wit in order to guarantee your success. As a servant leader, the bottom line is important. You have to deal with your profit, but you have to know how to take care of your guests and your employees in order to provide that successful bottom line will be there. When it comes to Churchill, he had to do the same exact thing in politics. He had to work his audience. He had to work his team in order to provide for that successful end result, essentially. Networking is also everything. This applies to hospitality and politics as well. They were very, very similar. You have to talk to people and meet people and know who you're going to work with. Essentially, think of Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He knew who to surround himself with in order to succeed and move forward. In hospitality, networking really is everything. You meet people, you use them to your advantage, and you learn how to work with them to get what you need. In hospitality, there is also a lot of things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to motivation. You have to motivate your staff. You have to motivate your guests so that they know that they're happy and get what they're really looking to receive. And you also have to work on your profit. People are your motivation, your issue, and your profit when it comes to both hospitality and politics. And it's important to keep in mind that there are so many different factors that go into a well-rounded entity. Whether that entity be in hospitality, whether that entity be Great Britain during World War II. There are a lot of different factors at play. And knowing how to adapt and how to meld those different objects and get other people to see your vision is a true challenge. One that Winston Churchill effectively took, succeeded in, and essentially ran with as well. Thank you.